Been a generally positive reaction across the country today to the nomination of Judge Clarence Thomas to the Supreme Court. ABC's polling unit has been on the phone and finds that 54% of the people they spoke to believe President Bush has made a good choice. But a third of them, 33%, said they haven't made up their minds. And many of them may be waiting to see where Judge Thomas stands on the highly visible issue of abortion. Our poll shows a clear majority of the public, 58%, does not want the Supreme Court to overturn Roe versus Wade, the ruling that guarantees women the constitutional right to have an abortion. Today there was a clue to Judge Thomas's position on the subject. Here's our law correspondent, Tim O'Brien.
As Judge Thomas left for work this morning, attention began to focus on a speech he gave in 1987, suggesting he would vote to overrule Roe versus Wade. In the speech, Thomas praised an article in the American Spectator magazine which ridiculed the right to an abortion as spurious with not a single trace of lawful authority. The article suggested that fetal life was protected by natural law, one of the inalienable rights expressed in the Declaration of Independence. In his speech, Thomas seemed to agree, saying that part of the article on the meaning of the right to life is a splendid example of applying natural law. That was enough for abortion rights groups to decide quickly they would oppose Thomas's nomination.
I think it has the potential to bring down this nominee. Given the importance of the right to privacy to Americans, I think this could be the smoking gun.
The group is also concerned about an article Thomas himself wrote in 1988 expressing misgivings about the Supreme Court's earliest privacy rulings, rulings which formed the basis for the right to an abortion. If Thomas is confirmed, abortion rights activists are so convinced Roe versus Wade would be overruled, they say they'd consider getting a test case to the court quickly. The rationale, if it's to happen, let it happen soon, so that George Bush can be held accountable in the 1992 election. Tim O'Brien, ABC News at the Supreme Court.
Judge Thomas is different from many black politicians and elected officials in two important respects. He's a Republican and he's a conservative. Here's ABC's Jim Wooten.
Most black Americans with political muscle have been Democrats. There have been exceptions, of course. Republican Ed Brooke, the only black senator in more than a century, and a few others. But they're rare specimens, and so is Judge Thomas, and so is Alan Keyes, a major player in the Reagan State Department.
Well, I don't know that we're going against the mainstream. We're going against the folks who have set themselves up and been set up to a large degree by the media in this country as spokespeople for a certain point of view.
The view that only government can lift minorities into the mainstream. That's bankrupt, says Keyes, and Thomas, of course, agrees, perhaps because he lifted himself from poverty with the help of supportive grandparents and the nuns at a Catholic school.
There was an affirmation of the tradition and values of our country, even while the treatment that my race received was deplored.
A fellow law student at Yale remembers Thomas for his diligence.
But he seemed to be the type of person that whatever he earned on his own effort.
And in Washington, on Republican Senator John Danforth's staff, Thomas discovered that those efforts and his race offered considerably more opportunity in the Republican Party than in his own. He learned what Michael Williams says is a valuable lesson, that
being a black conservative is not the same as being an Uncle Tom, that it's part of the tradition of the black family to be conservative.
Thomas changed parties, got a major appointment from Ronald Reagan and a seat on the federal bench from George Bush. Now Keyes says his conservatism will be overshadowed by his commitment to the same values that brought him this far.
The more that people see and hear of Clarence Thomas, the more they will be persuaded that his brand of integrity and independence and common sense is exactly what we need in this time.
Judge Thomas seems to have translated his steely ambition into his philosophy of life and the law. And when he changed parties, he gave that ambition a more realistic future. That's not the first time that's happened in American politics, but it is the first time American politics has dealt with it in terms of the court. Jim Wooten, ABC News, Washington.